Good morning, everyone. Today we will discuss important international economic organizations such as Asian Development Bank and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. These international economic organizations or international banks are important in our examination in prelims as well as paper 2 mains as well as in the economy also. So we will discuss how these are different from Bretton Woods institutions like IMF and World Bank and how they have been formed, what is their purpose in this lecture. So let us begin our discussion first with Asian Development Bank. So the Asian Development Bank, it was conceived in 1966 as a financial institution that would be Asian in character. So we have known the IMF and World Bank that are dominated by Western countries. So this Asian Development Bank, as the name suggests, it would be Asian in character. So it consists of mainly Asian countries and it will be dominated and its purpose will be for the Asian economies, and it will foster economic growth and cooperation in one of the poorest regions in the world. So in 1966 Asia is the region that is not yet developed. So these that is why this Asian Development Bank have been formed to develop Asia in 1966. So in 1950s what IMF and World Bank are, they are not concentrated to develop Asia particularly because they are not developed. They are nations that have been recently independent from colonial powers like Britain and France during that time in 50s and 60s. So majority of the focus that IMF and World Bank have is Western nations such as Britain, US, etc. So Asian Development Bank have been formed in 1966 for purposes of Asian countries. So it is headquartered in Manila or Philippines. It's a capital of Philippines. And Asian Development Bank has 67 members, of which 48 are from within Asia and Pacific, while remaining 19 are from outside. So we have to understand Asian Development Bank, its main motto is to reduce poverty in Asia. So it has member countries, it has 48 member countries that are part of Asia and Pacific, while remaining 19 are from outside. It means the countries that are not part of Asia will also be a part of this Asian Development Bank. So the bank admits member countries from Asian and non-regional developed countries as well. So its membership is not restricted to only Asian members or non-developed countries, but also any developed countries can be a part of this Asian Development Bank. Some of the non-regional member countries are Austria, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, US, UK, France, Italy, Germany, etc. So these members uh, which are part of Pacific, which are developed, can also be a part of this Asian Development Bank. ADB assists its members and partners by providing loans, technical assistance, grants, equity investments to promote socio-economic development. So its main aim is to reduce poverty and to develop Asian economies and give loans to Asian economies. So its membership has been expanded to countries which are developed and which are also non-Asian countries, like we have seen here, which are non-regional members: US, France, Italy, Germany, etc. So they give loans to member countries. So they provide technical assistance to member countries in implementing various projects in Asian nations as well as they give free grants to developing countries and equity investments. They invest in countries projects like infrastructure projects, and they get profits. If they get the profits or losses, that will be equity to the Asian Development Bank. So in many ways, Asian Development Bank will cooperate for these Asian nations to promote socio-economic development in the countries. So ADB finance projects in four ways. So public sector financing, it means directly it will have contact with government. It will provide aid to countries or member country governments and public sector entities as well. So this directly come under providing assistance to governments or nations. If suppose a public sector entity like DRDO, if that DRDO or ISRO, which are public sector entities of India, they took the loan from the ADB, then it becomes directly giving sovereign loans or government loans to the member countries. So it can also give loans to private sector projects, like it can give loans to private sector projects like Reliance, etc. So it can give assistance to them also for private sector. So it can give funds and resources through loans and grants financed by ordinary capital resources as well as special and trust funds. So it can give capital as a loan, it can give grants also, which are not like loan which there will be no interest. It can also give trust funds to projects in non-developed countries. So it can also finance projects, co-finance project as equity. It can be a partner with multilateral, bilateral or private institutions. So in any project, infrastructure or development project, construction of water tanks or construction of hospitals, it can be a part in it. It can contribute in it with commercial. It can also collaborate with commercial financial institutions to finance development projects in the region. So it can also act as a partner in various projects in the countries. So it was modeled closely on the World Bank and has a similar weighted voting system where votes are distributed in proportion with member capital subscriptions. It means in 1960s, World Bank and IMF are only the banks that provide loans to member countries. If a member country is in crisis or is in recession, if it want to have loans, US and other countries need to accept, and their permission has a huge say. If a country like US doesn't want IMF to give loan to a particular country in Africa or Asia, then that member countries can't get loans from these organizations. And there are many other conditions for these banks to give loans. Suppose if a country go and get the loan, they need to follow the rules that are set by the World Bank and IMF. They want to follow not only economic rules, but also they dictate terms like to follow democratic principles in the countries, in their countries who took the loans. That is why it will be like US directly interfering in their political affairs if we go for, if a country go for the loan. So there are many political issues as well as economic issues that will tend to get involved in a country to get loan, like in the IMF or World Bank, especially in 1960s. That is why in 1966 this Asian Development Bank have been formed to provide loans, to provide assistance for various projects, and to reduce poverty in the Asian nations. So it has weighted voting system where votes are distributed in proportion with members' capital. It means like in the IMF and World Bank, it is same as in the ADB. It means a country, if a country contributes more as a capital, US will contribute more as a capital in IMF and World Bank. So it has a huge say. It means like that only in ADB also, whichever country contributed highest capital, it has highest voting power. So there is no much difference, but what their area of operation is different. It will operate more more towards developing Asian nations. That is why it have been formed. But the functioning of IMF, World Bank, and ADB is same. Whoever country contributes more, they will have a huge say. It means the voting power is not equal between the members. So in previous lectures, we have discussed about new development bank that is formed by BRICS countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They formed a bank that is called New Development Bank. I have discussed this before. The New Development Bank that is formed through Fortaleza Declaration, and the New Development Bank is different from other banks. New Development Bank is a new bank and it is formed because of BRICS. So the New Development Bank has equal power, equal voting rights, irrespective of how much contribution that member countries contribute. So Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa in BRICS or New Development Bank, mm, they have equal voting power and equal say. They don't have extra voting power or highest voting power like these banks like ADB, World Bank, IMF have. So we have to understand the difference between the functioning of various banks. So it has also preparing this Asian Development Bank recently have also been preparing strategy for 2030, which is a long-term strategy to respond to changes brought about by rapidly evolving Asia and Pacific. So it want to reform itself and it want to address the new problems that Asia and Pacific are facing. It consists of countries that are part of Asia and Pacific. So India is a founding member and the fourth largest shareholder in Asian Development Bank, and Asian Development Bank is developing New Delhi as a regional hub for its operation in South Asia. So it also invested in Mumbai Metro Rail project, Assam Integrated Flood and Riverbank Erosion Risk Management Project, East Coast Economic Corridor, South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation. So these are various projects that ADB. So these are the projects that these countries are involved in. So the East Coast Economic Corridor is a transport project, infrastructure project in India, and South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation. It's a regional economic cooperation of South Asia, consists of countries that are part of SAARC. So ADB consists of countries like China, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Philippines, etc. So these countries will have huge say, and ADB provides various loans to these countries at very less interest rates than IMF and World Bank. So the ADB or Asian Development Bank has a huge important role in developing Asia Pacific region and also stopping poverty in Asian regions. And ADB has also a membership of UNESCO, that is a bank admits the members of United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific, that is a part of UN. UNESCO is a part of UN. So member countries of Asia and Pacific are directly admitted into this ADB organization, and as well as non-regional developed countries will also be a part of it. So as of now it has 68 members and it has a huge say in development of Asia and Pacific. So I hope you understood the Asian Development Bank, how it is different and how it is same with respect to weighted voting system on the same lines of IMF and World Bank. So its main purpose is to alleviate poverty and to develop Asian regions. It is formed in 1966. So we will discuss here Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, how it is formed and when it is formed. It is formed newly like a new development bank that is formed by the BRICS, or we can call new development bank as a BRICS bank. So it is also newly formed Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. It is formed in 2016, and it has other objectives, and it has totally a different purpose from Asian Development Bank and other organizations. We will discuss this in detail now. So, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank consists of countries. 27 countries have become members of Asian Infrastructure Bank so far. So, these were the countries: India, Pakistan, Nepal, China, and members of Southeast Asia were also a part of it. And there were member countries of UK, France, Germany, Italy. But there are no representation from Japan, or there is no representation from US. So there is no US present here. There is no Japan present here. So there are countries, these are the countries that are part of Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. So it's a multilateral financial institution which brings countries together to address the daunting infrastructure needs across Asia. So Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, its main aim is to address infrastructure needs. So in 1960s and 70s we have saw how Asia is a poor region, how poverty need to be reduced in Asia. That is why Asian Development Bank have been formed. But later what happened is these countries are slowly emerging, and they need loans, or they need loans to implement various infrastructure project. If infrastructure is increased, then there will be employment to people in that country, and by that employment the GDP and the growth of the country will happen. If there is no investment in infrastructure, there will be no growth in Asia. If a country need to get infrastructure projects or loans, they have to go for big loans from IMF and World Bank. Asian Development Bank consists of countries, but their contribution compared to organizations like IMF and World Bank, the contribution of ADB or Asian Development Bank is very less, or it cannot it cannot invest so huge money in infrastructure projects. It can aid small projects. Its main aim is to reduce poverty and towards development. But infrastructure needs across Asia needs to have a huge momentum, because growth in Asia is a priority now. So for this there should be a bank that will ensure that will ensure money to go into this infrastructure needs of Asia. That is why this organization of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank have been formed. So its headquarter is in Beijing, that is China. So it is a China's idea of the bank, and it has invited many countries. India is also a part of it. So China wants to increase its infrastructure projects in Asia, especially after China started growing after 1980s. So what has happened is, before this Asian Infrastructure Bank, before 2008, when there is a global financial crisis, then the country of China is growing at a very fast rate. So for 1% of investment, there will be 10% of growth. That is how the China and India are growing before 2008. And after 2008, what happened is, because of global financial crisis, many countries are affected in the world, and IMF and World Bank, what they have done is, they have not given assistance and loans to Asian nations, because they are dominated by Western powers. So they were not given loans during 2008 and 2009. And These countries need loans and assistance and infrastructure projects to grow. After 2008, China growth have been comparatively reduced when it is compared to 2000s. Its growth is reduced. Even India's growth is reduced. There are so many NPAs from 2008. NPA or non-performing assets in our Indian banks is not a new problem now. It's a old problem from 2008. From 2008, there are many losses, but what banks are doing is banks are covering up those NPAs. It means restructuring their NPAs or remodeling them as a new NPAs year to year. That is how the NPAs are grown now. Now NPAs are like nearly 14 lakh crore or 2 lakh crore now, even after reforms that have been done. So there are huge losses in these countries, and when these countries go to IMF, they are not given assistance. So when if they want to grow, they need to have one Asian in a bank that will be Asian infrastructure bank that can give loans to these countries. So the membership in AIIB is open to members of International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So ADB members or Asian Development Bank, that can also be called International Bank for Reconstruction or and Development in Asia. Those members can also be a part of this Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So that is about it. Asian Development Bank members can also be a part of this Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and it's a multilateral financial institutions have representation from countries like China, India, UK, etc. And it has no representation from Japan and US, and it is headquartered in Beijing, and it is a China dominated infrastructure bank. We have also been seeing Chinese policy, that is Belt and Road Initiative. That Belt and Road Initiative is majorly financed by this Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. It has authorized capital of $100 billion and subscribed capital of $50 billion. So its capital contributed by all the countries is $100 billion. So it's China, India, Russia are the three largest shareholders of Asian Investment Infrastructure Bank, with voting shares of 26.6%. That is of China. It's a huge say. China has huge say, that is 26.6%. India has 7.5 and Russia has 5.92. US and Japan are not its members. Its aim is to stimulate growth and improve access to basic services by furthering interconnectivity, economic development in the region through advancement in infrastructure. So its main aim is to promote transport infrastructure and to increase exports of China. So by increasing infrastructure in other countries, it want to increase its exports. It's a main aim of China. It's a main idea of China to form this bank, and India is also a part of it. And India also has a huge importance and contribution next to China. So it has invested in 13 member regions of Asia. It offers sovereign and non-sovereign finance. Sovereign finance is a finance that is guaranteed by the governments. So non-sovereign means it gives loans to private members in a country, private companies in a country. That is called non-sovereign. Sovereign means it's a nation's guarantee or government's guarantee, that is called sovereign. So sovereign projects it will finance, and as well as non-sovereign finance. The fourth annual summit meeting of Board of Governors of AIIB was held in Luxembourg in 2019, and upcoming meet is going to be held in China. So the main focus areas of this Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank are rural infrastructure and agriculture development. So they want to develop this rural infrastructure and agriculture in various Asian nations and to increase GDP and infrastructure in the areas of agriculture and rural areas. So it also invests in energy and power. It also invests in environment. Transport and telecommunications are those main areas where they invest because they have huge returns when a country invests in transport projects. It provides employment in return, and by employment it also increases the GDP of a country. It also increases the export of country from one country to other country. In total, it will develop a Asian region, and it also invests in water supply and sanitation projects, and also urban development and logistics were the other focus areas of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So it invests in all these infrastructure as well as even environment in these areas of Asian countries. So India and AIB, India's contribution and AIB contribution in India, it's very important because we can quote various projects in our mains examination about what are the projects that AIIB have been investing. So the power transmission and distribution projects in Assam, metro rail projects in Chennai, Mumbai, and rural water supply system in Karnataka, major irrigation and flood management project in West Bengal, 250 megawatt solar project in Rajasthan, Mumbai urban transport project, etc. are some of the projects that are sponsored by this Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank have been contributing majorly in countries like India, etc., and other participating countries because of the capital that is provided by developed countries like China and Russia, India as well. So they collaborate because of the capital that have been given by these nations. They collaborate together and invest in countries and meaningful projects like infrastructure where employment is generated and growth can be created in Asian region. So US have a huge concern in the Asian region and formation of this bank because this Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank is a Chinese dominated idea. That is why US doesn't want other countries to join, but there are countries that are part of this Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Apart from the concerns of US, India joined because India is also getting benefit out of this. Even China and India has a huge bilateral disputes. Even then India wanted to get benefit out of this Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. We can't go to World Bank and IMF each and every time to go invest in our projects and to have assistance. We can get assistance from our regional groupings like this Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So, and UK is also a part of this group, but Japan and US is not part of this bank because it is formed by China. Now we will discuss the prelims question. ADB is a multilateral financial institution and regional development bank. The bank ignites the members of United Nations Economic Social Commission for Asia Pacific or UNESCAP, or formerly called ECAF or Economic Commission for Asia and Far East and non-regional developed countries. So it consists of members of UNESCAP and non-regional developed countries like UK and US and also Japan. So yeah, it has a members. Second statement is correct. And third is ADB is an official UN observer.
So third statement is also correct. So the answer here is 1, 2 and 3. So we need to understand the difference between international economic organizations of IMF, World Bank and various regional banks like NDB, ADB and AIIB. These are important whenever they are in the news for prelims examination as well as mains examination. So I hope today's lecture you understood the differences and purposes of these banks and how these banks are investing in India and how these banks are different from other banks like IMF and World Bank. Thank you.